With this administration's disastrous decision to freeze almost all foreign assistance, we all know this hearing is a critical opportunity for us to highlight not just China's harmful influence, but also the opening this freeze gives to the PRC to expand its foothold around the world, as many of my colleagues have already spoken about. We would be naive to think that desperate countries will not turn to China to fill the gaps that our assistance has left behind. And so with that in mind, I'm going to move on to my first question, which is PRC investment in the Middle East, because in recent years, China has deepened its ties with the Middle East. For example, the PRC has spent billions on projects in the region, including for infrastructure initiatives, such as high-speed rail line linking the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, desalinization, solar plants, port modernization projects. Meanwhile, the current administration's foreign assistance freeze, which already has broad-reaching impacts throughout the Middle East, threatens to leave a vacuum that the PRC can exploit for further influence in this critical region. So, Dr. Lind, what are the practical implications, practical effects of Chinese investment in the Middle East? Specifically, I'd like to hear more about how the PRC can leverage or might leverage its economic ties to advance its regional interests.
Thank you for this great question. So I think it's clear from Chinese activities in the Middle East that you describe that we can see in China and its behavior there as well as other areas of the world, it does have global aims. It recognizes that this is an essential region for energy security, and for influence. And so China wants to have influence within that key region. So its actions tell us that pretty clearly. I think the other thing, getting to the practical implications of this, so obviously this is letting the United States know we need to be engaged in this region if we want to maintain the influence that we've had. And then also on the theme of today's hearing, I think this is a region where we particularly see the risk of China's support for global authoritarianism. China is probably the world leader in what we talk about technologies of authoritarian repression. And this is one realm in which it practices tremendous influence around the world. And in this region in particular, it's just, there's so much demand for what China is selling. And it's not, by that I don't mean just Chinese technologies. I mean certainly Chinese firms, but also Chinese government influence, Chinese government partnerships. These are relationships that it seems to be sort of pushing on an open door between like-minded societies in many ways, that some of these governments have an interest in acquiring technologies and methods and expertise in repression, and China holds that expertise and technologies and so on. And so those are, I think, among the biggest practical implications of its involvement there.
Well, we have a lot of threats from China, the threat of countering the threat of opioids, countering the threat of other types of competition. But I'm going to move on to something in my last moment that has a Nevada connection. It's the lithium competition. Because given the dual-use potential economic importance of lithium-ion batteries, securing a reliable lithium supply, it's a national security imperative. Nevada's poised to be a global leader in this issue. We're home to the highest proven lithium reserves in the United States. So Dr. Hart, I'm concerned that Chinese battery exporters, we think about other ways they can influence us, and we all like our phones. You know, people know about lithium from that. That deliberately lowering the price of lithium-ion batteries to undercut U.S. and allied manufacturers. It's a tactic the PRC has employed in the past. So can you talk to us about how we can weather this unfair practice and ultimately win the lithium-ion battery race with China?
Sure. So where we have sectors that Beijing controls global supply chains, and we're working very hard to get alternatives online, such as the projects in Nevada, getting those alternatives online is step one. Step two, I suspect we're going to need something like a buyer's club for these critical products, whereby the United States and key allies and partners agree to buy from each other. recognizing that we won't cut each other off. Otherwise, if we have a completely open market, China will do what China has done before, which is dump product on the market to put these really important alternatives out of business. So getting them online is step one, but for step two, we're going to have some kind of multilateral arrangements or buyers clubs to encourage and incentivize companies to buy from Nevada instead of buying from Beijing.
And would you think it's a good idea for the Department of Energy and the Department of Commerce to continue to fund the lithium loop that is in Nevada as a tech hub that will help us fight China?
I think our national security may depend on it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank our panel. Dr. Lin, as we closed here, you hit on a point that I think really deserves underscoring, and that is the fact between our cultures. And that is, you were talking about the technology they produce for